One question that I was being asked from time to time is, Keith, what movie are you looking forward to most this summer? And believe it or not, that movie was The Purge election year. Now, I'm not a violent person, so it's very difficult to put into words why this one movie had captivated me. I know the summertime comes out, we've got a lot of sequels, we've got a lot of blockbusters, we've got a lot of superhero movies, but The Purge election year was just one that just looked really interesting to me. The director, James DeMonaco, has made three movies over the last few years. The Purge Anarchy, and now Election Year. So this has pretty much been this man's entire focus. And tongue-in-cheek, I've been saying, hey, you know what? If Donald Trump gets elected, we could be having a purge. But all of that aside, this was a really interesting movie. I say that because he has basically taken a story which a lot of people can look at as just being violent and just being, over the top. And what he's done is he's basically constructed a story that is essentially boils down to the haves and the have-nots. Now, if you're not familiar with the backstory of the Purge, it's pretty simple. In the not too distant future in the US, crime is at a minimum, the unemployment rate is at an all-time low, and one big reason for that is because once a year, over a 12-hour period, all crime, including murder, is legal. People have the opportunity to purge. Now, going through the first two installments of this, we saw it from different perspectives. We saw it from the perspective of the rich hoity-toity family who's got the state-of-the-art security system that they can protect themselves. In the second movie, we expanded our horizons where we saw multiple characters outside who didn't necessarily have those means to protect themselves. In the third installment, we've got a senator, a female senator who wants to become president, who is completely against the Purge, mainly because she was a victim of the Purge several years ago and she wants to see it gone. And her rival is a member of the Founding Fathers, the group that is, of course, extremely for the Purge, who wants to see the Purge go on. Now, we met Frank Grillo's character in the last movie, but he didn't have a name. We just referred to him as Sergeant. Well, now we call him Leo. And Leo is on her security detail. And wouldn't you know, something happens, and the next thing you know, where they thought they were in a safe house, they're not, and now they're on the run. And they want to do everything they can to survive the Purge night. Now again, if you haven't seen any of these movies, it might seem a little hokey to you, but one of the things that draws me into this is the fact that we have seen time and time again in our society, when there is no law and order, the you-know-what hits the fan. And the Purge does a really great job of showing that. The Purge also shows the fact that there are a lot of people who seem to carry all of this resentment and anger, and then they bring it out on Purge night, whether they're going after their boss, they're going after their ex, they're going after their current. There's a whole lot of craziness that goes on, and I find that James DeMonaco does a really good job of showcasing that. Now, we've seen a lot of movies where there's just violence for the sake of violence. I don't necessarily find the Purge to fit into that mold. I find that people are killing because it's the Purge, but then you start to wonder, well, how do these people interact with each other throughout the rest of the year? One of the other things that I really like about this movie is the fact that it does a great job of centering on its characters while also kind of dabbling in what's going on around. So it does a really good job in terms of developing characters, and to that end, we've got some new characters. We've got a deli manager who's extremely stubborn, who does not want to leave his restaurant, or sorry, his deli during the Purge, because all of a sudden his Purge insurance has gone up, and he can't afford that, so he has to stay and protect his store. We're also seeing new characters in terms of characters who are upset because they feel that they were slighted because they weren't able to get a candy bar at a store. So there's all sorts of craziness and shenanigans going on, but one thing that maintains through all of these movies is it does a really good job of bringing the fear. Jason Blum, who of course was involved with the Paranormal Activity movies, is one of the producers of this, and you can kind of see some of his fingerprints involved in this movie as well. In terms of it being the most anticipated movie for me this summer, it did not disappoint. I found it to be very good. Maybe the strongest of the three. But because it got to stand on the shoulders of the previous two, that also helped. I don't necessarily think I could go into the Purge election year without seeing the previous two and still enjoy it as much as I did. The jumps were frequent. The jumps weren't necessarily predictable. And overall, I really liked the story. It is not overly violent, and there's a lot of movies that have come out that have been more violent. And much like Paranormal Activity 3, like I said, this could be the best in the bunch. So there's something about the third one. I really recommend this movie, and I'm giving it a B+. But again, if you haven't seen the first two, you want to check those ones out before you venture into the third. If you get the chance to see The Purge election year, I would love to know what you think. CFL_fan on Twitter, Facebook.com/WittyWhittier, and WittyWhittier.com. I really appreciate you taking the time to check this out. My name is Keith, and I'll see you at the movies.